Pragmata has been a very long time coming. Keep in mind, Pragmata was announced 6 years ago at the PS5 reveal event, which as of 2026 made Pragmata and Little Devil Inside the final unreleased games from that showcase. And at this point, who knows if Little Devil Inside is ever going to see the light of day. Needless to say, Pragmata clearly had a tumultuous development cycle. There's no world in which Capcom would have intentionally revealed a game 6 years before launch, so evidently Pragmata's development must have been rebooted somewhere along the line when it became clear that the team's original vision for the game wasn't coming together. So the question is, does the most long-awaited PS5 game actually deliver the goods and offer a coherent final product? And my answer to that is thankfully an enthusiastic yes. I am so grateful that whatever issues they encountered along the way, Capcom decided to push through and take their time to massage Pragmata and get it right, rather than scrapping the project. Because this sci-fi romp is one of the best new IPs of this generation, boasting an exciting, original sci-fi world, an impeccable sense of style, and one of the most novel combat systems you'll find in any action game. Pragmata sees Capcom continuing their generation-long golden streak and maintaining their place as the strongest third-party publisher of the past decade. Taking place in the not-too-distant future, Pragmata follows spacefaring engineer Hugh Williams, who's dispatched to the Cradle, a base on the moon which is being used to mine a resource called lunar filament, a recently discovered element that has changed the course of human history, as it can be used in conjunction with a device called a limb printer to 3D print just about anything imaginable, be it buildings, weapons, vehicles, or even synthetic life forms. The Cradle is a largely automated base run by a skeleton crew of humans, with the labour handled by robotic workers that are overseen by an AI called Edis. But recently, Earth lost all contact with the Cradle and the crew of human workers within it. Hence, Hugh and his support team are sent to check in. But upon arriving, Hugh, would you believe it, finds that the AI that was put in charge of the base has turned on the humans and is utilising the robot workers under its control for nefarious purposes, leaving Hugh trapped in the Cradle and forced to fight his way out if he ever wants to get back to Earth. An AI space station going rogue? Who would have thunk it? However, Hugh is not equipped to deal with these rogue robots by himself, and thankfully, he doesn't have to, because soon after arriving at the Cradle, Hugh encounters Diana, a state-of-the-art humanoid android called a Pragmata, programmed and modelled after a little girl who just so happens to be capable of hacking through all the locked doors and enemies in Hugh's way. And while at first I did question why the hell you'd program an android to look and behave like a child, all is eventually revealed over the course of Pragmata's story. I'll level with you and be completely blunt. As a rule, I usually hate the inclusion of child characters in entertainment, because if we're being honest, more often than not, they can be pretty annoying. So Diana was my one major apprehension going into Pragmata, because if she was handled poorly and you were forced to play through a game with an annoying character perched on your back, chirping in your ear the whole way through, I would not have enjoyed my time with Pragmata. Diana as a character was always going to make or break Pragmata, but as you can probably guess by my glowing praise in the intro to this review, I was pleasantly surprised by Pragmata's handling of Diana. I found Diana to be surprisingly endearing, in part because Pragmata avoids the tropey moments that can make this kind of character so abrasive. We're never forced to deal with any forced, angsty drama between Diana and Hugh. There's never a moment where the two are at odds with one another for the sake of theatrics. Diana is a well-meaning character, filled with an endless amount of wonder and curiosity about the world around her. as she stops to investigate objects in the environment, asks questions about the world, and expresses her fascination with Earth and its inhabitants, creations, and natural landscapes as a being who has only ever known the moon and the man-made architecture that populates it. With Diana's ultimate dream being to go to Earth and see its beaches and trees for herself. As you'd likely guess from just a glance at Pragmata's key art, the surrogate father-daughter relationship that Hugh and Diana begin to form is the major crux of Pragmata's story, and I enjoyed the way the burgeoning paternal bond between Hugh and Diana was explored, and seeing Diana become more human throughout the course of the game through her interactions with Hugh, with Pragmata being filled with sweet little moments like Hugh teaching Diana how to high-five, or Diana giving Hugh her drawings as a thanks for taking the time to talk to her between tasks when back in your little hub room. Oh, and no, we are not going to touch on the weird discourse around Pragmata created by some utter freaks on Twitter. Between Pragmata, Mixtape, and now God of War Lao Fei, it sure has been a great year for brain-dead internet discourse. Pragmata's overarching story touches on many expectant themes, like the pitfalls of AI and what happens when you allow humanity to be replaced by machines, a topic that feels eerily relevant to our current world. But Pragmata doesn't have anything particularly new to say on the subject, and its writing is in no way outstanding. So while I don't think Pragmata's overarching narrative is terrible by any means, I found it a little thin and not overly compelling. The ending also felt a bit too abrupt to me. However, there is a secret ending you can go for that hints towards the future of the franchise, even if it doesn't expand on the ending of Pragmata in any profound way. But I'm the kind of person who can be a little more forgiving towards a slightly flimsy story if you present me with an interesting world and a compelling cast of characters to drive that story forward. And Hugh and Diana are likeable enough that they kept me invested throughout Pragmata's 12-hour runtime, and the emotional beats between the two did largely hit for me. I also appreciated the delightfully cheesy and self-aware dialogue of Hugh, as he spits out one-liners like, "Time to stick my boot up your holographic ass," or breaks the fourth wall a little as he pokes fun of the video gamey nature of Pragmata's level design, calling out how the layout of one of the labs you explore makes no sense, questioning why the terminals required to unlock a door would be scattered across different areas of the building. But Pragmata's biggest drawcard isn't its story or writing, it's its gameplay. Pragmata is a gameplay-first experience, and it offers some of the most distinct gameplay you'll find in a AAA game this generation. The simple act of moving around in Pragmata feels great, thanks to the thrusters plastered across Hugh's suit that allow you to hover between platforms and dash out the way of enemies' attacks. But what makes the gameplay of Pragmata truly sing is its wildly inventive combat system that sees you simultaneously controlling Hugh and Diana to get the better of the miscreant machines roaming the cradle. Pragmata's combat system is unlike anything I've encountered in a game before, blending standard third-person shooter mechanics with puzzle gameplay, which, on paper, sounds like it should be a total mess, but works shockingly well in-game. You see, the enemies you encounter in Pragmata are practically invulnerable on the outside due to their nearly impenetrable armor plating, so if you just run up and start shooting them, it's going to deal next to no damage. So first, you need to hack these enemies with Diana to expose their weak points so you can start dealing some real damage. What this looks like in practice is having you solve a little grid-based puzzle that pops up whenever you aim your gun at an enemy, with your goal being to guide a cursor through the grid to a point that lowers the robot's defences, avoiding blockades and passing through additional nodes along the way that add debuffs to enemies, like leaving their weak points exposed for longer, increasing damage dealt to them, or spreading the hack to surrounding enemies so you don't have to hack them all individually, with more of these hacking nodes being unlocked throughout the game. But the real kicker is that all of this is happening in real time. Time doesn't stop or slow down while you're solving these puzzles, so you need to be aware of enemies' positioning and dodging out of the way of their attacks with the thumbsticks and bumpers, while simultaneously solving the puzzle with the face buttons. This patting your head and rubbing your stomach gameplay formula forces you to multitask and constantly be cognizant of multiple things at once, but it feels surprisingly clean and seamless. I'm honestly staggered by just how well this all comes together. Having to solve a little puzzle to damage every enemy you come across could so easily become tedious, but instead, it just makes Pragmata's combat encounters all the more engaging. Pragmata also brings a novel approach to the firearms themselves in combat. There are no ammo pickups in Pragmata. Instead, you have one core weapon that uses energy that recharges automatically whenever you're not firing it, which starts out as a pretty basic pistol, but is eventually replaced with a more powerful alternative. But the vast majority of weapons you'll be wielding in Pragmata are 3D printed weapons that you pick up around the world, all of which have limited ammo, and once you've used it up, they're destroyed. However, these weapons are plentifully littered throughout the environment, so you'll never go more than a few seconds before stumbling across a replacement. You can even print any weapons of your choice to bring out on the field whenever you're back in your home base, and while you'll only be able to carry 2 of these weapons at first, that number will double to 4 as you upgrade your storage capacity. These temporary weapons range from shotguns, to the Riot Blaster grenade launcher, to the stasis net that binds enemies in place, to the Charge Piercer railgun, which is capable of tearing through multiple enemies when charged to its maximum capacity. Pragmata offers such variety in its weapons, and all of them feel phenomenal to wield. Whether you're using the lock-on missiles to knock a swarm of drones out of the sky, or charging up on a robot with the Shockwave shotgun and blasting its entire torso clean off, leaving only a pair of legs standing. Pragmata also offers ample opportunities to combine the tools in your arsenal with environmental hazards to quickly dispose of groups of foes, by doing things like using your decoy generator to place a hologram of Hugh in the middle of a laser grid to lure all the enemies in the vicinity into the danger zone, before activating the lasers and frying half a dozen enemies at once when they're conveniently bunched up. Pragmata's excellent combat mechanics are given the room to shine the brightest in the meaty battles against its gargantuan bosses. While many of these bosses come in the form of massive mechs, it's the bosses with animalistic designs, like the mechanical scorpion and worm bosses, that are the true standouts, fully showcasing this team's spectacular mechanical design chops. Pragmata is a near perfectly paced game, with its 12-hour runtime moving along at a wonderful clip, allowing its ideas to be fleshed out while never overstaying its welcome. As far as I'm concerned, this is the ideal runtime for this style of AAA action game, as it helps to incentivize replayability. And it's not like Pragmata doesn't offer plenty to do for those seeking to spend longer in its world. And I did, because Pragmata's environments are a joy to explore. So I spent hours meticulously combing through environments with Hugh's environmental scanner, scavenging for upgrade materials, escape hatches that serve as fast travel points straight back to your shelter, ticking off the red zone challenge areas that see you fighting through challenging combat gauntlets for valuable rewards, and of course, hunting for collectibles. And Pragmata handles collectibles wonderfully, offering meaningful objects to find, ranging from documents and video diaries that flesh out the lore of Pragmata's world, as we learn the story of the creator of Lunar Filament and lead researcher of the Cradle, Dr. Higgins, and his sick daughter Daisy. Then there's also the REM data that allows Hugh to 3D print items from Earth to give to Diana and feed her fascination with Earth culture. be that a slide, a water gun, a globe, crayons, or a skateboard. And in exchange for giving Diana these gifts, you'll receive cabin coins, which can be used to unlock everything from intel reports, to upgrades and blueprints, to some very cool alternate costumes for Hugh and Diana. Pragmata also offers a fairly extensive post-game that's required to see the secret true ending, and one of my favourite touches, its challenge rooms, which are highly reminiscent of Metal Gear Solid's VR missions, offering a selection of traversal, combat, and survival gauntlets. Pragmata's strongest draw for me in its pre-release showings was its extraordinary art direction, and this remains a highlight throughout the final product too. Pragmata's look actually reminds me a little of one of my favourite hidden gems of the PS3 360 generation, Vanquish. Pragmata has a distinct aesthetic and an impeccable sense of style, offering this very sleek, clean, almost sterile sci-fi look that's broken up through these little pieces of Earth scattered throughout, as we stumble across recognisable Earth architecture, or organic life in a lab as you see a butterfly enclosure, or out-of-control, overgrown trees tearing through the walls and floors as there's no longer anyone maintaining them now that the cradle has fallen. I just love the juxtaposition of these high-tech, man-made environments and organic life thriving within them. And the designs for everything from Hugh's suit to his weapons to this world's tech are so striking. Pragmata is easily one of the most distinct looking sci-fi games of this generation. I'd also be remiss to not point out Pragmata's endless pieces of sleek animation work, like the way Hugh's mask forms around his face whenever a fight kicks off, or the flashy finishes Hugh can perform on downed enemies. But perhaps the most impressive aspect of Pragmata visually is its awe-inspiring environments. A real standout to me in both the trailers and the game itself was Pragmata's recreation of Times Square on the surface of the moon. Seeing one of the most iconic locations in the world ripped out of New York and thrown into space was unlike anything I've seen in a game before. It's not only visually striking, but the very concept of this piece of home being recreated for the humans who are out working on the moon colony is such a cool idea that you don't often see explored in sci-fi. And Pragmata is well aware of just how gorgeous its plentiful vistas are, regularly panning out the camera to let you fully absorb the jaw-dropping magnitude of its environments and structures. With Pragmata, Capcom continue their run as the most exciting and consistent third-party publisher in the games industry. But they've also secured an even bigger win, delivering the rare new IP with massive franchise potential. Pragmata is one of the most original, creative, and beautiful new games of the PS5 Series X generation, delivering a masterfully designed combat system that unites the unexpected, yet surprisingly complementary mechanics of third-person shooting and puzzle solving, traversal abilities that make exploring environments a delight, and an endearing duo of protagonists in Hugh and Diana, pulling off perhaps its most impressive feat of actually making me like a child character in a video game. This is a style of game we don't get too often, a AAA, highly experimental new IP, and it makes me so happy that people seem to be showing out to support Pragmata. This is such a pure, fun-first, video game-ass video game. The kind of experience that made me fall in love with games to begin with. My friends, this is unquestionably the year of Capcom, with two absolute heaters out of the gate. With Resident Evil Requiem and Pragmata, Capcom is 2 for 2. Let's hope they can keep this roll going with Onimusha Way of the Sword. And at this point, I have no reason to believe that Capcom won't knock it out of the park with Onimusha as well. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this review, be sure to like, subscribe, or leave a comment. And be sure to stay tuned for my upcoming reviews of Invincible vs, Saros, and Lego Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight. Till next time, be well guys.